Hey everyone, so I promised I would do another FarmerPhil episode, kind of revolving around the whole Giants B10 team. So here I'm going to show you exactly what I do. You'll notice that I have some Veramos reps and then the common core farmable units. That's actually what you're going to use because Shannon, Belladionne, Bernard, and Darian, of course, they help you they really help you survive in Giants B10 because it's necessarily more important to survive in Giants B10 than it is to speed clear. I think a lot of players have a problem with Giants B10 because they try to speed clear and build a team that everyone else is using when it's not necessarily how you should start out. So you'll notice right away I have the defense buff. The defense buff is actually one of the most important key aspects of the Giants B10 run because there's a lot of damage in the earlier stage. You'll notice that those crystal towers on the left and the right, every time you go into a new run for the first 4 stages, yeah, those things can actually deal some damage. The golems, not so much. You'll notice that they actually go down pretty fast once you get the defense break on there. And Belladionne is pretty much the best healer you can get as a farmable player or just a free-to-play player. That's probably going to be the first real healer that you get. So it's always good to have those. Now, you got to be extremely careful as you get into a new stage, or I should say a new little level part. So there's 5 stages up into the boss, and every time you get into a new one, the first, the second, the fourth, and the fifth, up until the very, very last part, you will in fact actually have crystal towers, and they can really hurt you. So you got to be careful with those. You'll notice that I'm keeping them stunned or putting on some slowness on them as much as possible. Getting rid of one of them kind of destroys the entire threat that they pose, but it's really not that big of a deal once you get that defense buff off. Now, this is the big thing. You got to make sure that all of your units are in fact max skilled. In this video, Belladionne is actually lacking 2 skill ups, but you'll notice that I can still do it anyways. But I do lose a unit at the end, just a fair warning, because Belladionne is not max skilled yet. So once I max skilled Belladionne, these runs become much more smooth, and you're probably thinking, oh yeah, you're using a Veramos rep. And of course, I'm using a Veramos rep. You'll notice that I'm going for the Veramos Fusion as soon as possible. It is always good to go for the Veramos Fusion first. He is such a game changer for farming dungeons. It is extremely important to get the Veramos rep as soon as you can. And there's no time to waste. There's no reason you need to wait to farm because you can get Veramos reps pretty easily. Ask your friends, ask your colleagues, whoever's playing the game, ask them to pop a little Veramos rep, and you got to share the love, all right? So if you get the Veramos rep and you're repping it and that's your next 6-star, that's probably best that you add some lower levels or some other players that need the Veramos rep because when you're back in your shoes, when you have the Veramos reps, they help so much. Now, of course, I only have 4 Veramos reps because I was inactive for quite some time. So everyone switched their, rep monsters back. But when I did have the Veramos reps, yeah, it was quite amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and skip forward here and see if we can get to the boss stage. All right, so here we are at the boss stage. You'll notice one thing right away is that I actually am a little bit low in health, and that's just mainly because I actually took some damage in the earlier stages. Now, you see that he does actually hit quite hard, and that's why it's always important to have that defense buff off, and you can't get that defense buff off unless you are max skilled. If you're playing with chances if you don't max skill Shannon, which he's pretty easy to max skill. You'll also notice that I'm making use out of all of the debuffs I bring. I have 2 monsters bringing attack break. Darian and Bernard bring attack break, which reduces the boss's attack. I am removing the boss's attack buff with Belladionne most of the time. Sometimes the C's doesn't work. And then, of course, my main source of damage, if you notice, is actually the dots. The dots are actually what deal the main source of damage. You'll also notice I have 1 debuff on there, which is extremely underrated in the earlier stages of the game, but very, very important, which is the glancing hit. Now, I do lose Darian, which is not a big deal because we actually have inflicted enough dots or continuous damage effects on the boss that he will die once he gets a turn, and there he goes. The boss is dead. That is how you do Giants B10 as a lower level account, like on a newbie account, right? So you're probably thinking, okay, what kind of runes are you running? And that's a big point here. A lot of people think that I have like these crazy runes, and I really don't. You'll notice that these runes are mainly from farming not only the scenario stages, but also running a little bit of Giants B7. It doesn't hurt to run a little bit of Giants B7, get a few good runes. I do have a few runes that I did purchase from shop, which is always nice to have. It's really important to keep an eye on your shop, but make sure you buy the proper runes. And if you'll notice here, I'm showing up the runes on the screen. If you'll notice, every single set that I have is farmable in Giants. The only set that I have that is not farmable in Giants is the guard runes I have on Darien, and that's just mainly because those were in shop, they were available. Might as well use them, you know. But ideally, if you don't get those, you can actually just run full energy on Darien. The point is to make him survive, as well as your other units, but it's always good to have Swift sets on monsters you'd want to run Violent on, Despair set on Shannon, so you can get a few lucky stuns on the earlier stages, especially because there's 5 monsters. It's a 25% chance you're bound to stun one of them, and it's just kind of a convenient thing to have. So if you guys are wondering, this is actually how you farm Giants B10 as a lower level before you get Veramos. This is how you can do it before you hit level 40. And actually, I would have been able to do this earlier, but I was gone for quite some time, so you guys can kind of understand that you guys should actually be able to do this on time, actually earlier than probably me. So if you guys have any questions, make sure you leave in the comment section below. This is definitely a short video, and that's just because it's really nothing that has to be fully explained in depth. It's mainly dealing with the debuffs that you can put on the boss, and then using the Veramos rep to throw on dots. As many dots as you can, because as you know, the dots, or the continuous damage effects, actually deal 5% of the boss's max HP. So 5% of the HP will be lost every time there's a continuous damage effect and the boss gets a turn, which is extremely useful because let's say you put in 5 of those, he is going to be losing a fourth of his health each turn he gets, as long as the debuffs are on there. So make use of the attack break. The defense break is not that big of a deal when it comes to the boss stage. It's mainly taking off his attack buff. Then you want to put on attack break and glancing hit, and then also it's really nice to slow down the boss. You don't want him to get too many turns to hit you, especially because he can stun and throw in slowness, so you got to be very careful there. Hopefully this kind of clears things up for you guys, because I know a lot of players have had questions about how I am able to farm Giants B10 at such a low level. This is actually how you do it. Now, of course, I do actually have to use a Veramos rep, and I am in the works of farming, or I should say, fusing Veramos, so I can make him, and I am going to make him regardless of the fact that some of the units are not farmable for the fusion process, and that's mainly because every player will have the opportunity to fuse him, and without using him, for me, I feel like that's doing you guys a disservice, because I'm showing you guys how to do something without a monster that you should be doing it with in the first place. So I'm going to use him, I'm going to show you guys how to do it with him, and you guys should be working towards Veramos fusion as soon as possible. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is a really short FarmerPhil episode, but this should clear things up, and someone's vacuuming while I'm recording. That's fantastic. Alright guys, I'll see you all in the next episode. Stay awesome.